We did a video before on hardness, which means how thick or hard a product is. I talked about, for example, that fat is really soft and that silicone is a little bit firmer in terms of the liquid silicone, and Perlane, Restylane, or Restylane first, and then Perlane being a very, very firm, hard product. And I talked specifically in that previous video about how I leverage the thickness and hardness of a product to achieve my goals. Since that video, I've had some refinements in thinking that I wanted to articulate. I thought that would be a good addendum, so I reference you to the previous video. It was called Perlane Polish, if you want to search that on YouTube or on my website. But the main thing I want to talk today about is some refinements of concepts that I've come up with. One of which is actually not something original, but I was over in Las Vegas and I was talking to some people and I said, you know, it's so hard for me to articulate why fat transfer works principally well to contour the face, but not really exclusively well for folds or lips or other things where I've got to lift things up. And he says, yeah, fat is like cottage cheese. And I said, wow, that's a brilliant way to communicate. And I've been using this description oftentimes when I talk to patients about the goals of fat transfer, in the sense that it's going to provide a nice contour, a nice coverage of bone, but it's not going to be so good to fix little crevices or holes. And when we start to do that, we overinflate an area because it's too soft to lift, so we just create too much volume to lift something small. It's not a good way to lift micro holes or micro transitions, as I call it. You need little tiny Restylane or Perlane drops to help soften and break those points that may be remaining after a fat transfer. So the concept that fat is like cottage cheese has nothing to do with the cellulite or anything negative connotation of cottage cheese. It's just to have you understand the softness of it. Now, let's talk specifically about another technology, the silicone, that as you know, is my favorite favorite method to augment a lip because it's permanent, soft, it allows me to titrate up to a level that looks good. But something that I've been talking about, and I don't think I've ever presented in a video, is that the degree of silicone augmentation that I do for a lip is directly proportional to the softness, remaining softness of a lip. Let me use an analogy to make that clear. Think of a breast implant. I don't do breast augmentation, I only do facial work, but it's a good analogy. If someone comes in with an A cup and wants a double D cup, and it's almost all silicone implant, there's no natural breast tissue, the breast itself, whether it encapsulates or not, is going to be relatively firm to touch. If you have a woman with a relatively large breast that has a relatively small implant, there's relatively larger soft tissue to implant ratio, and therefore that the breast is softer in nature. It's the same thing with the lip. If I have a woman that has paper thin lips and wants more of a dramatic change, well, one, I don't even know if I can deliver it. Two is maybe I don't want to deliver it because it may look unnatural based on her age or facial shape. But let's say that I want to continue to augment it. I'm pushing into 4 or 5 rounds of augmentation for the lips. I've noticed that when the lip gets to around 4 to 5, it can be slightly firmer, especially when the lip itself is naturally extremely thin. So those are just the concepts I want to present to you about firmness. Not say it's rock hard, but those are things that I just want to deliver for you that during a consultation you'll say, oh yeah, I saw that video, and it brings to mind some thoughts that I really want to, you know, maybe have some clarification with Dr. Lamb. So that's just a short video on the hardness of products and how I leverage those hardness to your advantage.